Hi everyone, it's Nick with Build Up Advisory Group, and it's Fastball Fridays, a web series where we will quickly build what you know about infrastructure design in the nonprofit sector. Today's Fastball topic is about strategic nonprofit alliances. When I use the term strategic nonprofit alliance, I mean a transaction that results in two or more nonprofits formally combining some or all of their resources and activities. So, this type of alliance is more than occasionally partnering to fundraise or sometimes hosting an event together. Those are great collaborations, but they don't rise to the level of what I consider a strategic nonprofit alliance. And I'm distinguishing between the two types because with the latter, there's a level of deliberateness, commitment, and capacity that can be created that I don't think the sector is exploring or talking about enough. When these alliances are poorly structured, they derail and can put stress on an already weak infrastructure. When they're done well, however, they can create and strengthen infrastructure in tremendous ways to ultimately support incredible work and outcomes. I wanted to highlight three key principles to consider when entering into a strategic nonprofit alliance. The first principle is that these alliances cannot be forced and they should be deliberate. I've seen forced alliances happen over the years. A typical situation is when funders that are working with different grantees in the same space don't understand why the grantees aren't working together more. So they suggest that the organizations work together, and when that doesn't happen organically, they require it in order for them to continue to receive funding. The organizations want the funding, so they form an alliance, and it works in ways over the life of the grant, and then usually collapses when the grant ends. We don't want that result. The key word here is strategic. These alliances need to be thought through, deliberate, and considered strategic by the nonprofits entering into the alliance. If the organizations haven't clearly identified compelling reasons to enter into the alliance, go back to the drawing board. You should be able to articulate the resources each organization will provide, understand how each of those resources can strengthen each organization's work and operations, determine how oversight and governance will be impacted by allowing two advisory bodies to come together, and determine how your organization will be up-leveled with this alliance. So you should ensure that you're entering into an alliance because it strategically advances your mission and goals. The second principle is that you need to understand the shape of your alliance and determine its structure. Not understanding your structure can have severe implications on your finances, fundraising, taxes, governance, and the infrastructure list goes on and on. So think about what this alliance can and should look like. Is it a merger? If so, which organization survives? Is it an acquisition? Is it a programmatic partnership? Some other type of joint venture? The reasons you have for thinking this alliance might work will inform what shape this alliance takes. And you should pay attention to that shape and understand what structure can fit the strategy behind forming the alliance. It will then inform the capacity needed for the alliance to work, the governance structure to ensure the alliance is impactful, and if you're making grant awards, the decision making that needs to take place within that process. So understanding your structure is critical. The last principle, but certainly not least, is don't think of entering into a strategic alliance only when you're at your weakest. On the contrary, you should be considering alliances when you're at your strongest. So when your programming, grant making, and infrastructure are all robust and effective, think about the types of formal collaborations you need to continue to build your capacity, support your strengths, and fill any infrastructure gaps. Trust me, when you're strong, the first principle I shared about being deliberate and strategic in order to enter into a formal alliance with another organization, it will be second nature. You'll understand benefits, challenges, and be clear on why an alliance might make sense. When you're in a weakened position, your program strategy is ineffective, your financial management is weak, and you have your team wearing 5 different hats in order to perform baseline activities of the organization, you're not thinking strategy. You're thinking survival. And that survival-based thinking starts a cascade of survival-based decision-making that isn't focused on capacity building or sustainability. It's built on scarcity, fear, and desperation, which do not create strong, thriving organizations. They create organizations that get by for a time until they don't. So when you're building and thriving, that's the ideal time to think about forming these alliances because you're naturally poised for something even bigger and better. By keeping these principles in mind, you'll step into strategic nonprofit alliances with immense clarity. And that clarity will produce a collaboration that strengthens your infrastructure, builds your capacity, and expands the impact you'd like to have with vulnerable and marginalized communities. And that's our fast build. I want to hear how you are thinking about strategic nonprofit alliances. I would love to hear from you and about your experience in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful weekend and keep building bravely.